Direct Connection is made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities and is made possible by the generous support of our members. Thank you. Live from Maryland Public Television, this is Direct Connection with Jeff Salkin.
Hi, everybody, and thanks for tuning in for Direct Connection. Tonight, the many questions surrounding the mass shooting in Las Vegas. Later in the program, an expert on criminology and victim impact. But we begin with two veteran police and military leaders. Joining us are retired Air Force Colonel Cedric Layton and former Baltimore Police Colonel Edward Jackson, now a criminal justice professor at Baltimore City Community College. Colonels, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Latest numbers, horrific. 59 dead, more than 500 people injured or wounded. Hard to think about what happened there. When you've been reading and watching this situation, what stands out for you?
Well, I think, Jeff, one of the biggest things is the fact that everybody was basically a sitting duck. And it's unfortunate you have to use that term, but there was no real exit for anybody to get away from the concert area, and except for the one that they came in at. And that was the one that the shooter apparently covered quite well. And that, to me, was, the big salient feature that stuck out,
right,
in this case.
Mm-hmm.
So that to me was I think one of those areas where we really need to look at that from a crime prevention standpoint and a victims assistance standpoint. We actually need to look at having multiple exits at venues of this type.
Absolutely, absolutely, I would agree wholeheartedly.
And from the standpoint of a former leader of the Baltimore City Police Department, Vegas is a bigger and bigger city every year, but this isn't something that any department could fully be prepared for.
No, you can't. I mean, it's unfortunate. My heart goes out to the families. Vegas is a type of town. It's a family town. The way it's structured, it's designed for a lot of people to be out there festive. And so it's very difficult for the police to prevent the type of tragedy that we saw last night. It's no way that they could have designed a plan to prevent this. There's too many factors that were known to the Las Vegas law enforcement.
We don't know a motive yet.
Right.
Typically in situations like this, do the perpetrators want their grievance or whatever the motive was to be known?
Right, and that's important. Although the suspect is deceased, it's very important to try to find out why this occurred. So it can be studied, and strategic plans can be developed to prevent a reoccurrence.
Oh, that's absolutely right. And what you don't want, though, is a situation where, as a society, we have to get into everybody's head in order to prevent something like this from happening. You really rely on not only the police, but also the citizens themselves.
Citizens themselves. That's right. Exactly right.
To do this, and when Jeff, when you think about what kinds of things we'd actually need to do in order to prevent something like this, it would be really difficult. It would be expensive. It would be hard. Obviously, if you save one life, that would be wonderful. And in this case, you would save countless lives. But the problem that you have is anticipating. From an intelligence perspective, how do you anticipate something like this? And just like the military, the law enforcement community relies extensively on a robust intelligence network.
Absolutely.
And Colonel Jackson, you told me before that while family members were saying they saw nothing out of the ordinary in this individual, they may not have known what to look for.
Absolutely, and we discussed it earlier. Family members are often subjective as opposed to objective. I mean, you love your family members, and who wants to think the worst of their brother that thinks he's homicidal? So a lot of times the telltale signs may be there, but because you're emotionally attached, you don't approach it the same way you would had he been a stranger that exhibited those same behaviors, even associate, a co-worker, or somebody that you're not emotionally attached to.
You've in police work seen people cause harm to other people for various reasons. Have you ever seen it for no reason, that somebody just wanted to kill and harm a bunch of people?
Oh, absolutely. You know, you have a lot of people, and I'm sure most criminologists would agree that you have people who, for whatever reason, can't control their impulses. They get these impulses, often inexplicable, to do harm. You know, it depends on what school of criminology you come from. Some argue that it's biological, that it's a disease of the mind. Others argue that it's just simply evil, that it's an exercise of an individual's free will and they're motivated just to do harm. So, I mean, it's so complex that in many of these instances, you'll never know what motivated them.
Let me remind our viewers, if you have a question for our guest, please give us a call. We'll have the number up on the screen. You can also tweet your questions. Our Twitter address is @MPT News. So, Cedric, when investigators go looking into this individual's, you're an expert on cyber, when they go looking into the search history and other online tracks, where do they start, and do you think they'll find something?
Well, I'm sure they'll find something. Most people have some kind of what they call digital exhaust nowadays. And, you know, it's one of those terms that may not be a very pretty term.
Had not heard that term.
But what it really means is, you know, all the search history, like you alluded to, Jeff. It means any type of, you know, obviously any type of email, any type of cellular connection that they may have had, people that they talk to. What they're really going to look at is they're going to look at a chain of events. They're going to try to find, through that so-called digital exhaust, they're going to try to figure out exactly, you know, whom they talk to, when they talk to them, possibly what they talked about, and if anything came of that, if there was a discussion that involved, let's say, planning for this operation, that would be the key thing. So they're looking for that, potentially a needle in a haystack type situation, but that's the kind of thing that they want to find out, because if they can, then that speaks to motive, that speaks to, is there an accomplice, or are there multiple accomplices? You know, is there something else that we don't know about? Is there a foreign connection? Right now we don't think there is. But even though ISIS claimed responsibility for it, that's basically been debunked by the police in Las Vegas, at least so far.
They just do that as a matter of course.
Yes, they do, and they've also been caught in other situations where there have been terrorist or events that have been thought to be terrorist events. They've claimed responsibility. Then when you peel the onion back, you find that it really wasn't them.
To do with it. That's right.
Exactly.
Let's take a phone call. Baltimore County. This is Fred. Fred, thanks for the call. Go ahead.
Yes, I mean, I feel like you're missing the point here. You're talking about this individual's motives, and if he didn't have access to that incredible weaponry, this would not have happened. This is an issue of gun control, and there is no psychological way. This does not happen in other countries that prevent these kind of guns being available. I'm sorry, this is the wrong direction to go on this show.
Fred, thank you very much for the phone call, and I don't know where either of you stand on gun control, Second Amendment questions. But Cedric, I'll start with you, because I know you were covering the attack in France for CNN. We talk about other countries.
That's right, yeah. In other countries, you know, Fred's right, they do have stricter gun laws. However, when you look at Bataclan, they did have access to weapons, guns specifically. They had access also to explosives. So it's even with very strict gun rules, it becomes pretty clear that people will find a way around this.
Absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly. When people have the mindset to destroy or to engage in a massacre, they'll find ways to do it, you know. And with this case, with respect to your caller, here's a 64-year-old man who had never been in trouble, was wealthy from the news accounts, was successful in business, a college graduate. I mean, he was really under the radar screen. He bought weapons, which is not illegal if you have the right background. It doesn't say that you can only buy so many weapons. He bought a lot of ammunition.
I mean, it says you can't have automatic weapons with
yes,
few
and
exceptions.
He converted those,
and
right,
this was
yes.
clearly done with automatic weapons
right,
fire.
Yeah, but if I go into a shop and I'm a law-abiding citizen, I can buy a rifle. Now, what I do when I get home, of course, that lends to his motivation. But I'm talking about on the surface, on the radar screen, the intelligence aspect of it. There was no way they could have known. And I don't argue with people. I do think that guns are in the hands of too many people who shouldn't have them because of their mental stability. I don't argue that, but it's an industry. It's just as much as an industry as that concert and Vegas entertainment.
You know, one thing you hear from gun rights supporters after many incidents, and the Paris attack would have been an example of this, is that if people among the victims had weapons, they would have been able to respond and overpower or kill the attackers. In this case, it wouldn't have helped a bit.
Right.
Right, because the attacker was 500 yards away.
It's a matter of range, right?
It's a matter of range, exactly right.
Because, I mean, when you're talking 300 or more feet, your ability to shoot back and to shoot back accurately is very limited. You might get lucky, but that's highly unlikely, especially if you're going for the 32nd floor.
Absolutely.
That's the hard part, I think.
Absolutely.
In this. And, when it comes specifically to the Second Amendment, I think what a lot of people don't do is they don't read the first part of the Second Amendment, which is for the purpose of a
well-regulated militia.
That's
exactly.
Right,
for a well-regulated militia.
And none of these people who have been, who've done things like this that I have seen have been part of a well-regulated militia of any type, whether it's the military, police forces, National Guard, or reserves. Very rarely are they a part of any of those organizations that today would constitute that well-regulated militia. So I think it is time, to be really blunt about it, I think it is time that we take a look at that and see exactly how we should examine, gun ownership, when and where it's appropriate, and to what extent. I mean, do you really need an arsenal like this gentleman apparently had?
And a real action plan, I would argue. There's two responses to the civil disorder and massacres and all types of tragedies. There's a political response and there's a practical one. And so I get frustrated when I hear politicians say we need stricter gun laws. We have gun laws on the books. What we need to do, what the politicians need to do, is fortify law enforcement with the right intelligence, with the right training, with the right strategic plan to address the gun problem in America, and hold gun dealers accountable and hold citizens accountable to make sure that the circulation of weapons is disseminated as best possible to prevent. You're never going to prevent a tragedy from occurring. What you want to do is minimize the occurrences.
And I want to come back to the gun argument from a Baltimore City perspective, where we've had this slow motion massacre. But let me get back to the phones. And to Fred's point, it is something that we're working to tackle on our political show later this week. Let's talk to Ron in Montgomery County. Ron, thanks for the call. Go ahead.
Hello?
Ron, you're on.
I'm on. Okay. I hope I'm being heard on TV. It is about time that this country and us accept the fact that we cannot stop these killings. It's impossible. When somebody's willing to give their life in order to kill a lot of people, how can you stop that? It's impossible. Give up on that. Give up on trying to stop them.
Ron, thank you for the call. We got the point, and I'm guessing neither of you would agree with that.
I certainly think that it is important to try, and it is from I think as a police officer you would agree, and certainly as a military person, there are certain things where you could have made the argument that well, you can't stop somebody like Hitler, but we did stop Hitler. So there are certain things that have to be done in order to actually serve as a deterrent in one respect, but also to stop that particular individual, if you can find them. It is a huge challenge, but there are ways, there are more predictive ways. We talked about the cyber aspect of it, the digital exhaust. When you look at that, you see what people are doing, and sometimes you can use that, coupled with newer technologies such as artificial intelligence, that can perhaps get us to a point where we find more and more people who are about to do bad things like this.
So, Ed, the Baltimore City question, when we look at the gun debate, we're closing in on 300 homicides again in Baltimore City this year.
Yes, sir.
Put the number in context, 300 homicides in an average year in Baltimore, mostly handguns. I mean, how does that inform your thinking on this? The mayor has appointed you to her new police oversight task force, so give us a word on that as well.
Sure. Yes, the mayor. I'm so proud to have been chosen out of many applicants to participate in the Community Oversight Task Force. It's part of the consent decree by the city and the Department of Justice, and what we're doing. Great people I serve with. It's 9 of us. We have attorneys, academics, and we meet a couple of nights a month, and we discuss strategies to recommend police reform. Everything from better training for officers to better tactics to strengthen the Civilian Review Board, to talk about police and community. But one of the things that we have to do, I argue that none of those things will occur if we don't attack distressed neighborhoods, broken families, the economy in many communities in Baltimore. So in order to achieve the former, you have to attack the latter, and that's poverty and hopelessness, and all that's tied into the murder rate, I believe. I mean, the availability of guns are a big part of it. Guns have gotten out on the streets since the 1960s. I think America's been fascinated with guns since the assassination of President Kennedy on November 22nd, 1963.
And even before that.
And even before then, but it seems like it's been a downward spiral that we haven't recovered from almost 60 years since his assassination.
I would absolutely agree with that.
Let's go back to the phones. Anne Arundel County, this is David. David, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
I'm going to look at the big picture tonight, what happened in Vegas and everything else. How did we get here with all these mass shootings and everything that's happened in the last, how long? Half decade? I'm going to go back 4 or 5 decades, maybe a half century. What's the big change that's been made? Well, what it is the computers, cell phones, World Wide Web, too much information, things of that nature that are giving people all these things to think about, video games, rated R, and all these things. And this is what is causing people to do these type of things. I go back to the 60s where maybe once in a decade, Richard Speck killed 8 nurses. These kind of things did not happen. What's happening, technology is outpacing human intelligence, and that's what it is. Now, how we fix that, I don't have the answer for that, but at least I recognize why we are where we are, and all I can promise, it's going to happen again.
David, we'll get some thoughts on that. Thank you for the phone call. Certainly the video game argument's been raised in other cases. This is a retirement age person, probably not playing video games, but it does obviously seem like the number of these incidents is increasing.
It certainly does, and from my perspective, you'd mentioned, Ed, the broken family aspect. This guy came from a broken family based on the reports that we see initially, and so you've got that coupled with, I think, a very correct mention that there are external factors such as the cyber environment, everything from cyberbullying all the way to what's on TV. The TV argument has been around for decades. That it's violent, that it causes a lot of different things. But I think the other thing to keep in mind is, in some cases, these things can serve as outlets, because when you look at the actual crime rate, yes, we have some very sensational cases, but when you look at the actual crime rate that's out there, it's actually decreased over the years when you're talking national level.
Before I run out of time, I wanted to get both of you to weigh in on the question that's on everybody's mind, and that's their personal safety. If you're going to be in a crowd, you're going to be a train station, whatever, is there anything you can do to make yourself not perfectly safe, but a little bit safer?
Yeah, I would argue that you have to scan your environment, meaning that whenever you walk into any venue, any location, scan your environment, look for an exit, look at the layout, just be aware constantly. Have a good time. You go to a ball game, a concert, any public event, have a good time, but look for a strategy, an exit strategy, should something happen.
Cedric?
And I would add that you should look for anything unusual. Why is that guy carrying that suitcase? Why are they putting it there? Those kinds of things. So coupled with the exit, which is absolutely right, and you look at something unusual. It's it's really all about detecting yourself those unusual patterns that may not fit in with what you're. I
tell my students real quick: a guy wearing a fur coat in July. It could be mental illness, or he could have a whole lot of. He could have an arsenal.
Colonel Jackson, Colonel Layton, we're going to leave it there. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. Coming up tonight, how the number of people victimized goes well beyond those who were at the concert in Las Vegas. We'll be right back.
Got an unused vehicle going nowhere? Donate it to the one place that can take you any place. Visit mpt.org/vehicles and support the programs you love on MPT.
The MPT app puts our programs right at your fingertips, so you can choose when to watch, what to watch, wherever you want to watch it. Download it now.
What happens in Japan and Asia matters to me. With NHK World's newsroom in Tokyo, I get the news live from Japan right at the start of my day.
New ideas come out of Asia all the time. NHK Newsline reports on business, technology, and world events from Tokyo to Bangkok.
Once in the morning gives me a heads up on the competition.
Every hour on the hour, the news I want from Asia.
Watch NHK World now on Comcast Channel 268 and Verizon Channel 480.
Joining us now from Baltimore is Heather Pfeiffer, Associate Professor in the School of Criminal Justice at the University of Baltimore. Dr. Pfeiffer, thank you for being with us. You've been able to hear some of our conversation. What's most important from your standpoint in this incident in Las Vegas?
Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. For me, I've just been thinking about kind of the consequences of where we move from here, of trying to assist and help the individuals that were directly affected by this tragedy. I mean, obviously, it's the victims who were either killed or injured. You know, we have to address the needs of the surviving family members of the homicide victims and those that are going to be recovering from their physical injury. But I think also I've been thinking so much about those that or the indirect victims of that they didn't experience the physical harm, but they were there and they saw it, they lived it, and just the psychological trauma that they're going to have to grapple with in the immediate future, but also potentially long term. I think too is that thinking about this as collectively of how this affects us as a society, our psyche. There are so many more individuals that are touched by this than just the head count, the number that were murdered and then were wounded.
And you're in the field you're in because I've read on your bio some family history, sad history, that your grandfather was a murder victim, and that was an event that had, as you say, a lasting impact.
Yes, sadly, my mother was pregnant with me when her father was murdered, and so growing up, I saw kind of the emotional scars of that event, and how for a number of the family members it lasted a lifetime. And a lot of it had to do with the fact is that there was not the appropriate response. There weren't the resources, and so they were left to kind of struggle with this on their own. And so I think for me is not only looking from a law enforcement perspective of the response, to the shooter and trying to figure out what the motivation was, but moving forward, how are we going to help the individuals that were directly and indirectly affected by this? How are we going to facilitate their recovery? What resources are there in the community? How do we link them to those resources? For law enforcement, they're going to face an incredible challenge in the coming days and weeks as they're trying, in the capacity of the investigation, to get information from those that were on the scene. And one of the things that they're going to butt up against is that individuals who go through this type of traumatic experience, it can have a really significant effect on their ability to recall information accurately. And that's going to be hard for them to kind of reconcile. They want to get as much information, completely and quickly as possible. And individuals may not be able to give them, everything that they need. The other thing, too, is I think about those that were there and weren't injured, the survivor guilt how many of them are going to struggle with that? And then, have it compounded. The fact is that if they can't provide, accurate information and assist, do they feel like they're not helping matters? So it's really a complex phenomenon, that I think we need to address holistically, is not only from the criminal justice side, but also, think about this from moving forward of trying to help these individuals recover from the experience, not only those that are at the scene, but their family members as well. I was listening to so many interviews with parents, loved ones of the people that were at the concert, and they were in a complete panic because they couldn't get a hold of their loved ones, and not knowing what happened, and they're going to have to deal with that fear as well. So I think it's an opportunity for us to learn how to respond in kind of in a trauma-informed manner.
In
so
just
that,
a sentence or two, where does somebody who might have been indirectly, hopefully affected by this, reach out for help?
Well, in most communities, and even I'm betting in Las Vegas Police Department, many agencies will have victim advocates that are on staff, and they will be there to help the individuals not only navigate the system, the criminal justice system, but link them to the resources. The community health, the health department will also have resources for people to be referred to, and it's really getting the word out and providing those linkages to reassure people
Dr.
you're
Heather
not alone.
Pfeiffer joining us from the University of Baltimore. We appreciate your time. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for Direct Connection, and have a good night.
This program was made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities.